It's what, live with Kelly and whoever, yes, or this. I'm not even sure what's on TV in the morning anymore.
I do not know.
Is he calling? Is he
Okay.
connected?
Ask. Video.
What about Will? Yeah.
I could get used to where.
Oh, hang on here. Oh, Will's coming in. Hang on. Is he calling? Is he? Oh, Will. Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Oh. Oh. Okay, can you turn that volume off?
Why am
Because you're broadcasting the YouTube live, so you
I?
can.
Well. I don't hear join audio.
Well, somehow you are. Wow.
Sounds like backbeat.
Because you're broadcasting the YouTube live. We're about 5 seconds away, but you're broadcasting.
Oh, wait. There we go.
Hi, Will. Will, can you hear us?
He looks frozen.
I hear you. I hear.
Okay, you are oh, there. Okay, he looks like he's frozen though. He's not even blinking. Will, are you alive?
He can't hear us.
Or he's completely frozen.
I'm thinking it's his connection.
No, I hear.
Oh, frozen.
You need run or are you?
I just think more internet. So I think it's going to be a problem.
All right. All right.
Well, that's right. He's never streamed in before.
He did once
Yeah, yes, he is.
on your test. You did a test.
Yeah. The test once he did, but I don't know where he was.
Okay.
All right, Will, can you hear us?
Breaking up.
Yeah, he's great.
Okay, can Will just zoom in with the call?
I can give him the phone number.
You want me just to call in?
Yeah.
So I have to have that public line open.
No, he can call in with the Zoom number,
Oh.
because we have to have public line.
Instead of 989.
He's not answering his cell phone.
So, I'm,
What want me to?
Yeah, Will, we're trying to call your cell phone.
we texted to him.
Well, he's not answering his cell phone, so he's
All right,
not having it.
where is my cell phone? Was it ringing?
No, it's not.
Okay, call his cell phone again. Take his wife off.
Now he looks like he's gonna fall into the.
Great. Okay.
All right.
It is 312 6 626 799.
I think
I turn
so.
on.
There we go. So he's gonna call in, and then yeah, let me get to
Why don't we get her on? Is he calling you?
I think so. I put him in the waiting room.
Don't start copying.
Because he's on the screen.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. I don't know if he can hear us.
You got me there?
Yeah.
Hey, Will.
All right, I'm in.
Oh, good. You sound good, Will. All right, let's do a test. Ty, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
And Melinda, I
I
think
can
you're okay, right? All right. All right. Michelle will be right back. She just went to get something so we can start the meeting, but I think we're all on. Before, Will, you were breaking up. You were, your audio and video was breaking up, so this will work better for you.
Yeah, that's
I think-
that's what happened in the other two Zooms. Nobody could understand me.
Yeah, yeah. It's probably because of your location. I know you have trouble with your internet at your house. All right, so I think we're all here. So we don't have a chairman. Will, as board chair, why don't you start the meeting? Do you have the agenda there with you?
I do. I did print it out, so I have it. So
Okay,
so we do roll call first.
yes.
Commissioner Bonnick,
Here.
Commissioner Wessel,
Here.
Commissioner Lautner,
Present.
all present.
Hey, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
And to the republic
under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
and justice for all. Okay. All right, thank you very much. So that would bring us to approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Ty,
Do we have
did you
any
support the motion?
Where did Melinda go?
You need support?
Yeah.
What happened to Melinda?
Oh, you can't. I'm still
No,
here.
he's-
Okay,
I was going
did you
out.
second that?
There we go.
Okay, there we go.
I thought I'd be able
All
to
right.
go into documents. I can't go out and go into documents.
No,
So we need a second.
I don't have my agenda in front of me. But that's
The agenda reads, let me read it to you. Can you hear me?
yes, definitely.
Under the action items is number 1, election of officers. Number 2, approval of minutes from April 4th, 2016. Number 3 is COVID-19 impact on Leelanau County, subparagraph A, policies, B, financial, C, personnel, and then just the normal agenda after that.
Okay, that's the last one I saw. We didn't add any.
no.
Okay, so do you second that motion, Melinda?
I can make it.
Okay,
Yes,
all those.
I was-
Okay,
So Ty,
all those in
second.
favor? Aye. Couldn't hear how the others voted, but I'm sure they approved it.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, so we'll move to public comment. Do we have any public comment?
We do have the phone set up. People do have the opportunity to call in. That has not happened though.
And it is being live streamed.
Nobody on there, okay. So then we move to the action items, the election of officers.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I move to elect Melinda Lautner as chair.
all right, I'll second that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so Melinda, now you take over the meeting.
All right, thank you. All right,
You're
then,
welcome.
to move down to those minutes then.
Yes, I'd move to approve the minutes of April 4th, 2016.
I support that. There are no changes, nothing, Ty?
No.
Okay. Say aye? Aye.
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 Okay, who's going to lead us in the COVID?
I will start here, and then I'll go over each of these items. So let me start with an update. I have been on several calls in the last couple of days. I talked to Matt Amsorg this morning. The health department is having an update tomorrow morning. The good news is things are fairly stable in Leelanau County. We are still at 9 cases. As far as I know, none of the 9 are in the hospital. Several have recovered. Other ones are home recovering. So that's the good news. The amount of testing is going up. So there may be more cases identified just because there's more testing going on. There has been no further updates in terms of anything local here. Matt is on the call every day, and they're proceeding with that. There's been a few more cases in Benzie County, probably because of the testing that's going on too. But compared to the rest of the state, we're in fairly good shape. I was part of a teleconference call yesterday with state officials. It appears that there'll be some easement of restrictions, maybe as early as this week, on construction codes in terms of construction workers being allowed to come back to work. This is just what I picked up. This is not official, but I got the impression that there'll be some announcements this week about that. The state will be divided in 8 zones. There'll be different restrictions, maybe lifted at different times in those different zones. That's all being discussed at this point. There'll probably be some more updates from the governor's office by the end of this week. There appears to be a lot of confusion about the policy about wearing masks in public and what is classified as public and what's not classified as public and so forth. Also, masks are difficult to come by. So I know the Attorney General sent an email out to businesses and to law enforcement Sunday saying that, yes, people are required to wear masks, but however, they realize that they're hard to get by and therefore have some flexibility. So they're encouraging people to wear a mask, but at this point, they're telling officers, unless it's a blatant violation, not to issue the fines or the citations. I'm part of a conference call tomorrow with the health department, and then Thursday at the state level to get more update. But like I said, there may be some announcements yet coming out this week in terms of the restrictions, and there may be some opening up of construction businesses in the next week or so. I know our state reps sent letters to the governor. Our rep, Jack O'Malley, sent one, I think, this morning or last night to the governor of his concerns about the restrictions in place and the impact it's having locally. So I think this will continue until at least May 15th. There's some talk about going to the end of May 30th, but at this point it's all speculation. And it seems to be evolving on a daily and a weekly basis. Any questions about that? I think all of you are probably on the MAC emails listserv, so you probably get updates from MAC on this situation too. One of the reminders was that counties should apply for FEMA grants. We did fill out the paperwork. We are on the pipeline as of April 30th. We are eligible. We don't have any expenses at this point to turn in, but we did fill out the application and we are approved for that. So in the event there are future major expenses to the county that could be potentially reimbursable, we are prepared for that option. I think that's it. Any questions?
Yes,
Well,
Chet,
Yeah, Will or Ty, sorry.
on the FEMA grant, I know that Ron has explored additional equipment to facilitate virtual meetings. Any of that qualify? And would there be some deadlines to address that?
I don't believe we would qualify for any of that. This is items directly related to mostly personnel, first responders, equipment, that type of stuff. I did not see anything that would allow us to apply for that type of grant.
Okay, thank you.
What about,
Melinda?
do we have all of our employees then on, where's payroll in relation to all our employees right now? I know we have some people working from home,
Yeah.
some off. How are we?
Yeah, that's actually on the agenda later on. We're going to talk about that. That's on the agenda.
going
The
to
next thing is policies, financial, and then personnel. So we'll give you an update on that.
So when we get, but for the COVID, we'll discuss COVID under that too.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. What about
So,
modification warehouse? That probably doesn't fall under that FEMA either then.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
Yes,
You broke
modification.
up.
We had some modifications.
Modifications? Not at this point, no. Most of the FEMA money, if we were eligible, would be directed to first responders issues and equipment such as probably masks, that type of stuff. We did get some masks and some gloves, I believe, through FEMA that Matt applied for. But it's pretty limited at this point. Matt says he didn't think we were eligible for any type of other reimbursements.
Okay. Thank you.
And fortunately, we have not had any major expenses related to it at this point.
Right. We've been,
And Jen can go over that more.
okay.
Right.
Do we have any questions on the COVID update?
Well, so we're not working anybody overtime or anything like that because of it, right?
No. And Jen can answer that more directly, but as far as I know, no one's working overtime, and that includes law enforcement. Is that correct, Jen?
No. So we'll have to talk about that when we
Okay.
get to payroll.
Jen will talk about
Okay.
that coming up. But in this
All right.
building, no one's working overtime, yes.
Okay.
Well, the only other thing would be as far as inspection and that with the slowdown, are we changing any kind of policies about on the inspectors?
Well, actually, if you look at the budget from January through March, now obviously things will change in April. They actually had a very good year from a financial standpoint. We were actually ahead of last year's projections. It has definitely slowed down the month of April, but if it reopens up as early as this week or next week with some restrictions, I'm guessing our inspectors may be quite busy. It just depends what happens in the next couple of weeks with the governor's
Okay.
order and whether construction can continue or not. As I said yesterday, I was part of a call, and it appears there may be some opening up to the construction business as early as end of this week or maybe next week.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
I'm assuming once construction does open up, based on what we were dealing with in February and March, it was going to be a very busy year here in Leelanau County.
Oh, yes. Definitely. Definitely. Yeah, the economy was booming.
Yeah, I was actually surprised. We had very good years in 18 and 19, And the first 3 months of this year, we're ahead of last year's pace.
Mhm.
Obviously, that has changed now.
Yes. Okay, are we ready to move down to policies then?
Yeah, we have reviewed our policies, and I don't believe there's anything that we need to do at this point to change any of our policies. I think we have everything in place. It's functioning. At this point, I don't see anything that we need to do in terms of policies to go forward with this. Jen or Michelle, do you see anything from your area?
No.
I mean, the board is meeting. We're going to continue to meet. There's no need to extend that emergency policy that you passed in March. That expired already. And so at this point, I think we just go forward with our policies as business as usual.
Yeah, I think or have you explained it to Tony? He seems to think we're still underneath the emergency policy we put in March, 14th.
No,
I think.
that actually, by your motion, expired April 13th.
Right. So I think that, I just, from an email from Tony, I thought he was thinking that it's still in existence.
Yeah, yeah. We can verify that. I think Michelle and I both respond back to Tony that there's no action required by the board.
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So, as far as policies go, it was not our policy that put deputies on the rotation of 7 days on, 7 days off.
No, that's a good point. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll wait till you get done speaking. It's hard when, no, yeah, there's been some confusion about that. There was a decision made by I believe the sheriff and undersheriff to change their schedules. That is something that they did, and that's within their rights in terms of the scheduling. We don't get involved with the scheduling of their personnel. So yes, they are working different shifts, but,
Right.
And Jen, you want to explain that shift to them because you know it from the time sheet perspective.
Yeah, so what they're doing is they're doing 7 days in a row. They're taking their 80 biweekly and putting them either in the first set of the payroll set of week or the second. So in those 7 days, they're working their 6 12s and 1 8-hour shift, depending on their rotation of what their 8s and 12s look like. So on the payroll side of it, it's very easy to track and to see who's on what shift and calculate those timesheets very easily.
Oh, yeah, that was the sheriff's prerogative to do that. That had to do with commissioners, but it worked with our system and payroll and vacation time. All of that's easily calculated.
Yes, and with the critical designation, vacation and personal time is taking at a minimum, if not any. So it makes it very easy to process. I know that we were going to talk about payroll next as well. So there's some things that we're just tweaking in that area as well.
Okay.
A question for the deputies: is there overtime occasions? Is it not any costlier?
So what I was going to do during payroll, but I can certainly do that right now, is one of the things that we're experiencing that we're all aware of is that less travel, less events. So at this point, the sheriff's office would have already had special events that we would normally see in their overtime slot that we would then see a corresponding revenue for when we bill those events. So the overtime that we are seeing are more case by case or call level versus their normal activities that they would be doing like relative to last year. So yes, overtime is down in the sense to where there's special events, but they still will have a call that they'll have to hold over for or come in early for. It's not every day or so, but we still do have overtime in the jail and in the sheriff's department on the road patrol, and that's just your everyday business. Same here in the clerk's office. We have more meetings, so we have a little bit more overtime because we have more meetings scheduled. It's just the cause of how this is all working.
I didn't ask the question right though. For me, I was asking the 7 days on and 7 days off had overtime implications?
No, because their contract is written 80 hours biweekly.
Okay,
So
thank
they've
you.
always been biweekly. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, by labor law, law enforcement can work more than 40 hours a week. It's the biweekly. For example, in this building, we cannot do that. If someone worked, they can't work 50 hours one week and 30 hours the next week. If there was 50 hours, we have to pay them overtime. It's different for law enforcement.
Okay. There's nothing else on policies then?
No, I think we're in good shape in terms of being able to deal with the situation. If you want to move on,
Yep.
Michelle, Jan, and I, and John have been meeting on a weekly basis looking at budget, because obviously that's a big issue, and Jen has an update on that.
Okay.
So just to touch base after the meeting that we held in April, and then I gave how we were looking in fund balance, expenses, and revenues. Basically, what we're experiencing in the clerk's office, and I haven't specifically talked with John about this, but I know from looking at his numbers, he's experiencing about the same type of situation. So in the clerk's office, any reports that were due in March are actually pushed off till April. So if there's any reimbursements, they're actually going to be a few months behind. So typically things that we would receive in April, we're probably not going to get until May or June. And it's just how this is all working, where people are working from home, or they're only going to the office at the state level, periodically to check whatever they need to. So there are a couple revenues that we're not showing on our books that we would normally have now. So in that realm, we're still holding course. This is typical for us. Our revenues aren't generated until our summer tax bill. All of our taxes have been collected through the 19 cycle. And so John's gone ahead and already paid out the DTR to us in the general fund. So we're looking about the same, other than, like I said, those revenues that we would have reported on or are systematically done quarterly. And we haven't received those yet.
Okay, I can't stay on video and go back to the report that, I think it is one that John sent. But that was some of the first 3 columns, I think, were through December, but then they had a March column, I think. And I thought that was revenues. You have that in front of you? If I go to that, you're gonna lose me on video, but I can do that.
That's okay. I didn't know if he sent you anything. I didn't get a copy of it.
So, from John, you lose me a minute. I think you have me on audio, yes?
Yeah,
You
we
still
can still hear you.
Okay. All right, let me see if I can find it. And maybe
I think John sent an investment update. I'm guessing that's what she's
Yeah,
talking about.
maybe
Oh.
Chet just mentioned.
I think what John sent out was an investment update.
Oh, okay, maybe it was just investments.
Yeah, it was a portfolio update just within the last week or so, Melinda.
Yes,
Yeah, that was just on his investments.
okay. All right. He had, he had some, what do they call the, not foreclosures, but yeah, I'm not gonna find it right now, so that's okay.
Okay, well, if he's looking on investment side, that's definitely something that he would have sent to you guys. But on our revenue side, so for instance, I've done a little bit of comparison. So what you're gonna see is, as Chet's reported in the last couple of meetings, the register of deeds is holding course with their revenue. What we're not gonna see is on the district court, meaning the sheriff's department keeps pulling people over. That kind of revenue is kind of at a status of 0 right now because there's just not a lot of that coming in. So it's on a minimal side that I see that the revenues have changed. Again, it's a typical April. And we're not quite done with our revenues yet until the 30th.
Where are we with audit? Remind me where we are with the audit.
Audit is actually finalized except for one document that I'm looking from Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's our lag report, it's called, for our claims that would have come in past the December deadline, and that has to be booked back. Otherwise, that is finished in a draft form.
So, Jen, you don't see revenues changing much. You're saying it's a typical April, and the revenue, you see the revenues coming in pretty much the same as usual?
Yeah, the only changes that I see is it should be on the sheriff's side. You'd be seeing it on the fact that people are at home. So on the district court side of transmittals, the tickets aren't being issued. The law enforcement isn't issuing as many tickets. But let's say, for instance, in the clerk's office or register of deeds, a lot of the product or a lot of services we do can be done through the mail. So the clerk's office is still seeing their circuit court payments come in. They're still seeing DBAs. We were very heavy in April with election. So we had a lot of customers in the sense of applying for affidavits, for the election. But we haven't, the only thing that I would say on the walk-in traffic for the clerk's office is more along the lines of your passports or your certified copies. But with Secretary of State being closed, those kind of like fall into line. If people aren't renewing their driver's license, they're not getting copies from us. So we anticipate that when those things start to open, we will be, if not busier than we were last year at this time, with more of a flood of that kind of information coming in a rush.
Okay. So we'll have to make up for this time we've taken off for 2 months, huh?
Yeah, the concern is, not just here, but everywhere, let's assume that there's a partial reopening on May 18th, for example. There may be a flood of people coming in to every county building statewide for the issues that Jen talked about. There's a pent-up need for people who've just been staying home waiting for opportunities, and that varies from office to office. Yes, the concern is that if we open up, there may be a major flow of people coming in at once.
Well, should we try to have some kind of policy or encourage a policy about certain days, certain letters,
Yes.
S through Z on Mondays and,
Yes.
whatever, so that we can limit that?
Yes, I've been talking with my fellow county administrators at least once a week on conference calls. And yes, everyone's just kind of waiting to see what happens. We want to develop a system. We're all kind of doing the same thing across the state. There's 83 counties. Everyone's going to do some of the things differently, but we're all trying to put together a unified force. And I'm going to allow listservs where people are sharing ideas and thoughts. And yes, Will, that was one of them that we set up alphabet. Just like with unemployment now, there's different days based on your last name that you can apply for. So yes, we are looking at all those options. It's so difficult to predict what's going to happen, and what type of a reopening there will be. From what I'm hearing, it'll probably be a partial reopening and not complete reopening. That's statewide on different services. How that would impact county government is hard to predict at this time. And we may have a policy where we only allow so many people at one time in the building. And there may be a number system, and 6 feet apart and so forth. So all that is up in the air. However, I feel comfortable that we'll have advance notice and we'll be able to deal with it internally and be prepared for when we do open.
So maybe we have to get one of those little tab things with the numbers on it.
Yep. That's been talking. Yep.
That's what I'm going to say. I think it's least complicated as possible. I'm opposed to the alphabet thing because everybody's going to go back to work at different levels, and Monday might be the only day that week that they can get up there, or Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I would do big courthouse, and our offices are so big compared to what we had before that I think that we could do it. Wait in the hallway until they're invited in by the office.
Yeah, and even if we did the alphabet, there would be guidelines. Someone comes on a Tuesday and their name is not the right name, we would not turn them down. But I mean, it's hard to tell what's going to happen. So we just want to be prepared. We obviously want to serve our clients, our residents as best we can. And so it's constantly evolving. You know, we may have some guidelines and some suggestions, but I can't see a scenario where someone's going to come to the building and we're going to say, well, sorry, you have to come back next Thursday, you know, because it's the wrong day.
Right, that's a good point, Melinda.
So how are, have they been issuing permits through construction codes during this time?
Yes, for certain projects, yes.
So how are their revenues? Are they?
Well, through March, we were in very good shape. Obviously, April slowed down, but from a structural standpoint, they have a significant fund balance. If we're not shut down for too much longer, as I stated, there's some talk about potentially reopening up constructions limited in the next week to 10 days. We should be okay. It just depends what happens in the next 3 months.
So last year, as Chet spoke, is the revenue wasn't, they received more revenue this past quarter. So actually, for the end of April, and we have one more payroll, he's at a fund balance of 802,000. And last year at this time, it was 723. So they're actually holding their own right now.
Okay.
But yes, our inspectors are still going on a daily basis doing inspections because some essential work is still ongoing. And the work going on still has to be approved. There still has to be inspections.
How are we doing in senior service? Are they logging hours?
So senior services, they're not logging in excess of any extra hours with the COVID response. They are doing a little bit more travel. I'm sure that Chet's updated you guys that there's businesses and they're taking meals to seniors. So we are seeing, you know, that they are delivering those meals and then there's expense there. April had contacted me the later part of March when this first started, and she's actually had great volunteers volunteering those meals, and then as well as donations coming in, and we've called it pandemic donation and or expenses. So there are people out there that want to donate to senior services for specifically helping someone with their groceries or paying their grocery bill at Hanson's or NJ's or the Mercantile. So thankfully, there are people out there giving, and they are giving to senior services to see it given forward to another citizen of the county.
And I think I mentioned that they have delivered meals. I know now to the Lake Leelanau area, Leland, Northport, and Suns Bay. And people are donating money to specific restaurants who are then packing the meals and calling senior services. And we have identified seniors that they're delivering the meals to. So that's a very positive event, you know, that people have been very generous and thoughtful of the seniors.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, good.
If there's one positive thing, it has really shown how much people in Leelanau County care about their seniors. Because I think, and help you out, Jen, I think they're over about 350 meals probably.
Yeah, well over that, yeah.
Probably close to 400 meals that they've delivered to the seniors.
Yeah, they split it up into 2 different days of the week. I believe it's Tuesdays and Fridays.
Yeah, so that's been very good. And as Jen pointed out, there's been specific people that have donated to a specific neighbor or friend. They don't want to know about it, so they donate the money to the senior services. Then April and staff goes out, does the grocery shopping, and delivers it to that home.
Good deal. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yes.
All right.
It's nice to have positive stories to focus on sometimes, and this is definitely one of them.
So then going back to financials, so does John have any indication then of any issue with taxes rolling in? Have people been asking for deferment or any possible thing like that, or just expect it to be rolling on, our revenues rolling on time?
Well, we talked about that a little bit, and I talked to John actually yesterday about that. You know, obviously the max tax basis is summer tax rules. And John brought up a good point that I didn't think about. Many people have their taxes tied into their mortgages where they pay monthly payments and so forth. And many of those people are just pay their mortgage and includes their taxes month by month by month. And so it should be interesting to see how that plays out. He has not been overwhelmed with calls, people to ask about tax situations. But taxes did not go out until, was the 1st of July?
But I was wondering how it's going to play out because some mortgages have been deferred. Mortgage payments have been deferred, pushed down the road. So how will that
Yeah.
work with tax?
Well,
Now-
Well, right, our discussion that we had in our meeting was, just part of my, I believe in my banking background would be that mortgage companies are going to want to make sure that the taxes and insurance are paid. So if you do have your mortgage escrowed in that sense, those payments would still come in because that's the investment from the bank.
Okay.
yes.
So the banks will make sure we're made whole.
Yeah, actually,
I'm just gonna look into that, but with the township levels to see how much is escrowed versus how much are, taxpayers that paid on their own. We might have something similar like we did in 2008 when the economy took a dip. People just waited maybe a little bit longer to pay their taxes.
I did read a good article this fall when what Jen says that, yes, banks are concerned about their investments. So they're going to make sure, I mean, it's hard to say what's going to happen 3, 6, 9, 12 months from now, but banks are concerned about their investments. And so they're going to make sure that taxes are paid for. Some banks are actually waiving the mortgage part of it, but still requiring people to pay the taxes and the insurance part of it. So I think every bank is doing something different on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. Yeah.
So that, we probably won't know that until the fall.
Well, that's good news then.
I can tell you on the financial part of it, and I think I sent you a report last week from the Michigan Association of Counties on what counties are experiencing and so forth. And everyone's kind of the same as us because taxes were due this winter. And financially, most counties that were in good financial shape are still in good financial shape. The counties that were struggling prior to this are the ones that are very concerned about the impact it has on them. Because some counties, as you know, are much in a different financial shape than we are for a lot of reasons. And those are the counties that may be having challenges. But counties like Leelanau and the majority of counties in Michigan that are in our financial shape don't see this as an impact for the next several months anyway. It just depends what happens long term.
Our delinquents that we registered in 2019 were 269,000, and our delinquents that they just settled with this year in 2020 are 290. So what we may see is that number 290 just be larger on that scale in 2021. And that would be something that John will know maybe in the October, by October, November, as to how many people have paid at the township level, because they pay first there and then it's settled and transferred to John. So I would say when we're about to approve our budget in October, he'll have a better number or an estimation from his township level.
Okay. Is there anything else? Anything
No,
else?
Jen has been monitoring this on a very regular basis. As I said, Jen, Michelle, and I and John have been talking at least once a week about this, trying to make sure we're on top of it, and also be prepared to answer any questions that you may have about the situation. Shall we move down to personnel?
I think so. If there's no other questions, I will.
No questions for me.
All
No,
right.
I'm fine.
Okay. Personnel, that's always a big issue here. At this point, it is the opinion of John, I, Michelle, and Jen that we do not make any personnel adjustments or layoffs at this time. They review it on a monthly basis. From a financial standpoint, we, as Jen pointed out, that we're in good structural shape. We don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks in terms of reopening, whether it be a partial, full, or shutdown. We are still very busy, as we pointed out, in some departments more than others. But across the state, there is no one that I know of that is looking at significant layoffs at the county level. There are some that are looking at furloughs, which I'll talk about in the future, but at this point, for the month of May, we are not recommending that we do any budget adjustments. Jen, anything you want to add to that?
Nope, it's payroll as usual, and like Chet said, financially, this is the same time. The customer base has just changed where it's not in front of us. They're either by mail or by phone, trying to handle, or even in some instances by web.
So let me go back to what we're doing here. By the governor's orders, we have to give people the option of working from home if it's feasible. There's been some issues, fortunately not here, some personnel issues, other counties with employees claiming that they were not giving that option. We do not have those issues here, thankfully. We have been very proactive. As you know, we passed a policy in March, which we gave our employees up to 10 days for non-essential. We've been tracking those. We do have a spreadsheet on that. Also, with the Federal CARES Act, which took effect April 1st, because the governor issued a state of emergency in Michigan, there are 10 additional days for employees. That covers everyone but law enforcement and 911. Those are deemed critical. And I think the key to that is because under the CARES Act, if employees have a need for childcare to stay home for reasons, we have to provide that to them. We obviously cannot do that with law enforcement or with 911 dispatcher because they are critical that they are here serving the public. So that is going forward. We do have people working remotely. The 10 days that the county gave expired April 13th. So those days are no longer eligible. The federal 10 days are in effect technically through the end of December 31st or whenever this passes. So we have some employees that are doing that, but we are tracking those on a daily basis. Employees have to fill out the healthcare sheets every day as they enter the building, and most offices are rotating on who's working remotely versus who's in the building, and it does change from office to office. Some have more flexibility than others to work remotely, but this time we're not recommending any type of layoffs of employees, and we need to review this on a monthly basis. One interesting thing that some counties are doing is they are looking at the furlough option. Now that means that the employees keep their benefits in terms of health insurance. They do not get extra personnel or vacation days, but they do not get their salary, but they keep their health care benefits. And some counties have done, and I'm actually looking at this option that we'll talk next week. Some counties have offered volunteer furloughs that it has to have the approval of their supervisor and either the elected official or the administrator, that there may be people that want to take a month off without pay. And so we're looking at that options. The counties that have done it have surprisingly had some responses. There may be employees with family needs, with childcare needs, with other issues that would appreciate having a month off, for example. So some counties are offering their employees to take the month of May off without pay, but they keep the seniority, they keep their job status, they keep their health care. They just don't get the financial compensation for that month. I believe they don't get MERS credit too. Is that correct, Jen?
Correct, they do not get MERS credit.
So I'm going to talk about that next week. So think about that, whether we want to offer that. The way that would work, it'd be a volunteer program where employees would have the option, but they need approval from their supervisor. So we can't just have people say they want to take a month off without pay. But there may be some individuals, it will vary from office to office, that may have the ability to take the month off without pay and still keep their job and keep their benefits. Any questions about furloughs?
I have some questions about that because I have some concerns.
Yeah.
So this furlough would just be based on the fact that there isn't enough work to do?
That's part of it, yes. And some families are struggling with daycare issues and other situations where they may want to take some time off.
My concern is, as are a lot of our residents, a lot of them, and a lot of them lost their job, which means they've lost their benefits also. So that's my concern, this offering for, as opposed to perhaps something else. And so there's got to be more options other than just work them beyond the 10 days or furloughs. Because
They do have the option beyond the 10 days if they wish to take vacation or personal days.
I'm more
I'm
along
bringing
the
this up as a discussion topic.
line is this decision come to a vote of the Board of Commissioners to furlough,
Yeah, yes.
giving them their benefits.
Yeah, I'm just bringing this up as a topic of discussion at this
Yeah,
point.
Something for us to think about.
Yes,
but-
yes. I want to give you a week to think about this.
Yep.
So in summary, we're not recommending, now, we're doing this month by month here. We are not recommending any layoffs for the month of May at this point. And I just bring up the option of furloughs because some counties have gone to that point where they are either, some counties, not many, have a few employees that they have furloughed. Other counties are giving their employees the option of taking a volunteer furlough. So I'm just bringing it up for you to think about.
Have we had anybody leave or retire, in the last, since the April 13th?
I don't think so. Jen? Michelle?
Not since April 13th, no.
No.
Okay.
All right, let's, if you want to move on, one thing I want to talk about is, as you know, we and virtually all counties, units of government have received requests for hazard pay for our first responders, which for us would be our law enforcement. And we also got a request for hazard pay from our dispatchers. Let's start with the dispatchers. They are working their normal shift, their normal hours, their normal working conditions. And at this point, I don't see a need for any type of hazard compensation for dispatchers. No disrespect for them, but they are working in the same system, same hours, same circumstances as they always have. So that's with the dispatchers. They do have a request that does make sense that we're going to talk about more. And actually, I got a call with Peter Cole coming up and Matt Anzorgi about the suspension of the contract language about vacation minimum. And Jen, you want to say what's in the contract here?
Right, so in the contract, according to the dispatch, they accrue their vacation time monthly. So when this all started, if someone was close to our cap, which is 30 days inside their bank, if they were to accrue it, let's say in May, and were close to that max out, they'll actually lose it. It won't let it roll and go over the 30-day maximum. And with them being considered critical, in essence, any vacation time that they were going to take to keep them underneath that cap was now, in essence, not being able to be used.
And just as background information, the same language is in the contracts for all law enforcement employees. However, in their contract, it's the sole discretion of the sheriff to waive that cap. And the sheriff has done that, so that cap is waived for the law enforcement employees. It's not waived for the dispatchers. And so we're looking at that option. And actually, I think it's a pretty fair proposal from the union. They're saying this policy, the waiver would only be in policy until there's a governor's order. If the governor order expires, the waive would expire also, and we go back to our normal practice. So we're going to look at that option in more detail. This morning, actually, Matt and I are talking to the legal counsel about that. But that does, I think, make sense. And we'll have more information for you by next Tuesday's meeting about this. So in a summary, the law enforcement contracts allow the sheriff to do it without board approval. That clause is not in the dispatchers. And that would need a letter of understanding, and that would need board approval to waive that.
Are you bringing that up May 5th then?
Yeah, I'll bring up May 5th, yeah. Any questions about that?
No, it sounds very fair. It sounds like it's something we probably really need to do.
Yeah. And I do appreciate the wording that was drafted by the union, and I think it's pretty fair. I just want us to review it with our legal counsel. But I do like the clause that says this is only in effect during the governor's emergency orders. So if it, let's say it expired May 15th, for example, this letter of understanding then would also expire on that date. So I
Right.
think it's a reasonable and fair proposal.
And then, but
And we're trying to work on it.
Would Matt still be in charge of making sure that not too many people took time off at the same time?
Oh, yeah, that does not change at all. Yeah, no, this only allows them to extend their number of, so they don't lose it if they have a vacation day or a anniversary day coming forward.
Okay.
So I'm sure we'll be able to come up with satisfactory language. I'm hoping by next Tuesday.
All right.
Okay, the next issue on hazard paid is what our law enforcement employee, that includes the corrections officer. As you know, this is a big issue statewide. As far as I know, every county received the same request. As you know, we have several unions here, and we have the requests from all the unions. And I've been looking what other counties are doing. Some units of government are offering hazard pay. The state police are receiving it. Some large townships and cities are doing it. There is a proposal at the federal level to offer some type of compensation for law enforcement, and also at the state level. And this is where some of the, I think, misunderstanding took place a couple of weeks ago. We have classified our law enforcement as critical, which means they do not have the flexibility of taking the CARES Act and, for example, staying home with their kids and so forth. Obviously, it's critical that they come to work, and it has a huge impact if they choose not to come to work. And we've not had those requests. When we passed our policy in March, where employees were given up to 10 days for non-essential, we did exclude law enforcement and the dispatchers from that because they are truly providing a critical service. So they were excluded from that. They also are excluded from the Federal CARES Act. We deem them to be critical. If there is federal funding, they have to be deemed critical to be eligible. So the sheriff and I have been talking about this, and we're on the same page here. It does make sense that we list them as critical for numerous reasons, but also if there is funding, they would be eligible because we define them as critical. In terms of local compensation, I've been thinking about this. From a financial standpoint, I think the sheriff and I are in agreement that at this point it'd be premature for the county to talk about any financial compensation. However, one thing I would like for all of you to consider is, as I stated, we gave our employees in the government center 10 days based on our March 17th policy approval. Then the federal government gave them 10 days. Our law enforcement people are not eligible for those days. However, as a gesture to them, what I think we could do is I'd like for you to think about that we offer them 5 comp days. And the way it would work, they would get 5 comp days. The sheriff and I have talked about this. It'd have to be approved in advance by the sheriff and would not create an overtime situation. If the board approved the 5 days, it would start, we're thinking, based on what we know, June 1st for up to 12 months. They have to be approved in advance with the sheriff, and we could not create an overtime situation. Based on their schedules, from talking to the sheriff and the undersheriff, they could, with proper knowledge, schedule it where their employees could get those 5 days and not create overtime situation. So I think in terms of fairness, we have employees in this building that have taken advantage of it, and we have offered that to them. And I think as a sign of respect for our law enforcement and our corrections officers, we could do the 5 comp days. It'd be a one-time only thing. It would create no overtime and would be expired at the end of a 1-year period. And this would not be part of a labor contract. This is something the board could do And I don't want to call this vacation days, I don't want to call it personal days, because then we have labor contract issues. This would be 5 comp days that everyone working in law enforcement would receive. And based on what we know, it would start effective June 1st, assuming we open up May 15th. Would expire in 12 months, would have to get advance approval from the sheriff, and would not create an overtime situation. I want to get your thoughts on that proposal.
Well,
What-
I think that's something to think about. Would that be on top of the potential FEMA funding dollars? On
Yeah,
top of
no, there is no FEMA money at this point. If there is money, it would have to be part of a federal package. There's been some talk at the Congress level of some type of payment. That has not been part of any stimulus package yet. There's just been dialogue about that.
So any hazard pay, this would be one or the other, hazard pay or 5 comp days, probably?
Well, that'd be up to us. Right now, we are not proposing any hazard pay for our employees.
I
But I
understand.
think to treat them fairly and try to treat them as fair as we did the people in this building, I think 5 days would be a fair amount and be a good gesture of support for our law enforcement people without a financial compensation.
Would they have to have health problems or other kinds of child care problems, or is this just going to be on top of everything else?
This would be 5 comp days that would not be specific to any health issues or child care issues.
Yep. Because wasn't what we gave to the other employees based on that?
No, we gave 10 days from March 17th through April 13th for employees that we deem non-essential. They got up to 10 days.
But I thought they
Now,
were.
some were related to health issues, yes. Some were related to health issues or travel restrictions. So it was a combination. And not everyone got those 10 days, obviously.
Right, and we're not putting any. You're thinking that we wouldn't put any restrictions on the law enforcement, or would that be 911 as well?
No, at this time, I would not recommend 911, and I have no disrespect for them, but they are working in the same environment, the same conditions, the same schedules as they always have. They're not being exposed to the public. They're not out there dealing with the public. They are handling it the same as they would any calls coming into the office. Obviously, there's new protocol, but in terms of their exposure and their situation, I think they are different than our law enforcement who are out with the public. And once again, this is a way of recognizing our first responders. This is a proposal.
I see.
Yeah, I don't know where I am on this, but I look around our county and around our region and I see lots of people that have been impacted. Lots of people have lost their jobs, so lots of people that are out of work. And can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
And
Yes.
I'm concerned that, the arrests are down. There's fewer people on the road. It'd be nice to be able to pay everybody, I guess, but I'm more concerned about the people that are out of work. I'm more concerned about the people that have lost benefits, insurance, income, and opportunity to feed their families. So I'm not really excited about comp time or hazard pay, unless the hazard pay comes from a state grant of some sort. Anyway.
Well, that's why I'm bringing it up to 3 of you here first. I know some counties have already done this. The one in northern Michigan is Otsego County and Gaylord. They have authorized 80 hours for their first responders. Now, obviously, their situation may be different than ours. I know Gaylord area has been a hot spot. There are numerous cases, and I'm not sure why, but Gaylord has, I think, by far the majority of cases here in northern Michigan. But I bring this up as you for consideration. We are not recommending any kind of financial hazard pay, but I thought this may be a good way to recognize them. And just wanted you to think about it before next week's meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we can give that some thought, because as Ty was saying, I've heard a lot of the same things that, you know, and in comments, reading articles about hazard pay, people are like, you know, they still have a job where, you know, or I'm underemployed, etc. So
Mhm. Yep.
there's that side of it, and not any disrespect for anything that they do, because we absolutely appreciate everything everybody's doing. But I want to go
Exactly.
that when we passed that resolution in March, I had understood that any employee on those 10 days would be working from home, but what is, you had medical issue people you sent home for 10 days full pay? Is that
I'm sorry, you broke up there, Melinda.
so? The 10 days you're talking about, we get 10 days, you said the CARES Act allowed 10. Were those people just being home then on those 10 days,
Yes.
or were they home?
No, there's some people working remotely, were working remotely. For people, and most of the people who either traveled somewhere or had potential contact, they were quarantined for 10 days and they were just labeled non-essential. The law enforcement people and 911 did not have that ability. However, we have been compassionate. There was one dispatcher who was potentially exposed from the travel. He was given the 10 days, and we had one law enforcement person who had some issues, and he was not given 10 days, but took, I think, several days. So we did try to treat everyone as fair as possible.
Okay.
The
Well,
hazard compensation time is something that counties are exploring more and more, so I want to bring that up. I did tell the unions that we would respond to their request, and so I wanted you time to think about it before next Tuesday's board meeting.
okay. Very good.
I did tell them, out of all respect to them, that there probably was not support for any financial compensation.
Okay.
As I understand, our U.S. Senator Peters brought up a proposal for hazard pay for law enforcement, and I believe Congressman Bergman, in a different proposal, brought it up. It has not been included in any of the stimulus packages so far.
Okay.
The state of Michigan did offer state police officers extra compensation on a weekly basis.
Okay.
Question.
Yes.
If we offer comp time, I assume that to make that work, the other officers would end up more overtime. And so I'd want to look at the budget implications of it.
Yeah.
I asked Jen a couple of weeks ago to give me a breakdown of overtime wages in the department, and I know they work hard, but we spend a lot of money on overtime, and it seems to me if we do comp time, that will go up.
Yeah, but part of the proposal that the sheriff and I talked about, if there was comp time, there'd have to be a guarantee that it would not be overtime impacted. They would have to schedule it in advance, and to a point, there are some shifts, and I'm not expert on the shifts, where they have 3 officers, other shifts have 2 officers. So those, if there were comp days, they would have to come from the time when there are the 3 on staff versus the 2 on staff. So it would not create an overtime situation. That would have to be one of the provisions.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anything else under personnel that we should discuss today? We're not going to make recommendations. This is just stuff to think about.
No,
for
I
next
just want to bring these points up for you to think about in anticipation of next Tuesday's meeting. And as you know, this is the first time this committee has met in 4 years.
Yes.
But I thought it'd be helpful to at least have dialogue and get your thoughts and comments on what to discuss next month. And obviously, when we scheduled the May 5th meeting, we had no idea whether we're going to be open on April 6th or April 13th or when. So I think it still is prudent to go forward, and because these are unique times. But I just thought we should all have an update on the budget situation.
Okay. Well, it sounds good. As you said early on, if our revenues are on track, then we're okay. Because I had concerns with the taxes coming in, this discussion on
Right.
brownfields.
Yep.
separate. Our building, a parking lot, et cetera, well, basically our CIP. And
Yes,
hours. So we'll discuss all those Tuesday.
yeah. On some good news, we did get a rebate check. As you remember with this project here, Kirsten Policastro said we're gonna get some rebates. And Jen, how much was the check we got yesterday?
I think 10,000, a little over $10,000 from DTE.
Very nice.
Great.
So it's nice to, and on a positive note, that it was money we obviously did not budget for, and that will help it will help with the cost of this building project, which is
That was
about
based on net,
95% completed.
that was based
Our-
on net usage, right?
I believe so. There was a letter, I gave that letter to Chat, but yeah, it goes back, it looked like it went for 2019 as a whole. So it looked like it was January to December
Yeah.
31st, and then the checks cut here in April.
And then I kind of glanced at there. DTE had a program where if you upgrade equipment that are more efficient, there's some rebates involved. And you probably know about that, Melinda, from Cherryland.
Yeah.
I know at Cherryland, if you get like a new water heater, there's a rebate. There's some other products you get a rebate. And this is kind of the same thing with that major industrial equipment that we bought.
Great. Yeah, that's great.
And due to the shutdown, they have not been able to complete this project here, but we're very close. And assuming that there's a reopening, I've been talking with Kirsten Policastro. I talked to her yesterday afternoon. We're coming up with some plans on how to complete the project here in the near future. But the good thing is there has been no surprises.
Okay. All right, that's great. Is that it then?
And Melinda, I see your cat made an appearance.
He did. He couldn't
Good for
stand-
him.
Yeah. He's a brat. All right, well, are we down to, if there's nothing else, are we down to public comment?
Board member comments next.
Board member comments, thank you. Ty, anything?
Nothing, thank you.
Will?
No, I just, we have a lot to think about for next Tuesday's meeting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thanks for putting this together.
Yeah,
Well,
thank
that's
you.
why I thought we thought it'd be helpful for the three of you to at least have some time to think about these issues prior to next Tuesday.
Yeah,
And you have to remember, there's no mandate that you take any action next Tuesday.
okay.
We set this meeting up not knowing what the future holds, and I'm thinking we're probably gonna have to have special meetings occasionally, depending what happens. So we're being proactive by setting up the May 5th meeting. And so we can have some discussions next Tuesday, but there's no requirement for you to take any actions next Tuesday. And also, as you know, we have the executive meeting May 12th, and then we have the regular meeting, I think, May 19th.
Right.
But I think it's good to have dialogue on these issues, and so you aren't surprised by anything.
Right. Well, and I'm wondering that if we can have funerals, 10 people, can we have meetings with 10 people?
Not at this point. There may be some clarification coming up this week.
Okay.
Actually, I may have some updates as early as tomorrow. There's been quite a bit of, let's say, different interpretation, for example, on wearing masks, whether employees have to wear masks or not in this building or not. And we had
Yeah.
a conference call yesterday. I've asked our legal counsel and other counties administrators I think we're having a conference call I think tomorrow morning too. But simple things like whether employees in the county buildings have to wear masks or not. Because are we a public building or not? Even though we're closed, we are still a public. And so people are having different interpretations of that. So I know people have been asked to get clarification on whether county employees in buildings have to wear masks or not. So, I mean, small things like that, it's difficult to get through. And so it's,
Right.
I mean, that's just a great example of how confusing it is to try to get clear, specific answers.
Right.
But we're all trying to do the best we can.
All right. Thank you for all you're doing, holding down the fort up there and trying to keep us going. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So now down to public.
No, there's no public comment.
Public comment. Okay. Move to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Or
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Yeah. Bye now.
Bye.